first of all, my name is Stephen Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. And thank you for coming to Savannah. Thank you very much. I know all of you traveled, all of you take times out of your life, and it's very valuable and very important time, and so we really, really do appreciate it. So we should all take a deep breath. We're here, ready to get started. This is a great opportunity to bring people together. We're in a sort of an unprecedented time. I like to tell my staff that we're living in both the best of times and the worst of times. You've got to hold those both simultaneously. Obviously, the worst of times, I don't know if you're like me, you've seen across your social media feed, you've seen the news. I've never seen so much angry water as we've seen in, floods, the devastation that we're seeing, whole cities being wiped out this week, in Libya and others. Just phenomenal amount of climate disruption that's happening. The fires in Canada, there's just a curtain of forest fires across Canada. That air pollution has actually come all the way down into the southeast. You go down to the Florida Keys, 5 feet under, the water is 101 degrees, which is completely unprecedented. And the coral reefs, they're bleaching out. These are tough times. These are real tough times. And but then we also live in the best of times. We're seeing unprecedented movement. We're seeing unprecedented development of technologies that are zero carbon. We know the solution. This isn't a problem that is happening that we don't understand. We know exactly what's happening and why it's happening, and we know what the solutions are. And we have the ability to solve this problem. And it's going to take each and every one of us. It's part of a generational change. We call it the clean energy generation, but it's part of a generational change. We're in a generational moment. And thankfully, the largest economy, one of the most powerful countries in the world, the United States, has now unleashed a torrent of federal money that is actually being earmarked into these problem areas. So it's a phenomenal opportunity. A lot of us who have been advocating around climate-related issues for decades, the passage of Iron Bill, as we affectionately call it, Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill and the Inflation Reduction Act, has really given us an unprecedented moment to take advantage of federal funds and transform the way we produce and consume energy. And that's what SACE's mission is. We've always been about how do we reduce the environmental footprint of how we produce and consume energy to make communities healthier, safer, and more equitable. These funds are part of that. And each one of you are literally on the front lines. You're really at the place where that change is going to happen. You are going to be part of the solution. You're going to be part of making the difference and how we can use those funds. So coming together collaboratively, coming together to collectively problem solve, to take advantage of this moment and think about what we can all do, that's what this conference is all about. It's about coming together, becoming a team, thinking about where are the challenges, how can we work together, what is best practice, what's working, what's not working, how do we figure it out, how do we work in partnership, how do we share information, use a collective hive mind, if you want to solve these problems so you don't feel alone, you don't feel isolated. This is the opportunity to be a part of that. We want to see this grow and expand. This is just the first of a series of things that we want to do in partnership with SSDN and others, and each and every one of you. So this is the moment. Be a part of the generational change. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. And let's work together and enjoy the limited time we've got together, but we've got a great program we think will help us all move together and form that opportunity to make a real difference.
Well, all right, thanks, Steve. And I'm so happy that we're able to do this with SACE. SSDN has been working with SACE over the last many years on a variety of different things, because those of you who are in sustainability, you don't just work on EVs, you work on efficiency, you work on other transportation elements, and so there's so much that we've been able to collaborate with y'all on. But this is really taking it to the next level, and I think something that SSDN realizes is that sometimes the partnership that we have with other organizations brings the technical expertise into our peer-to-peer network. So for those of y'all, or how many folks are a part of SSDN? Raise your hand if you're a part of SSDN. Okay, wow, great. If you're not, you meet your friends at a table. I have purposely put you all at tables where you don't know each other, hopefully. But SSDN, for those of you all who don't know, the Southeast Sustainability Directors Network is a network of local governments from across the South that are working on sustainability and climate initiatives. We've been around since about 2012, and we have about 115 local governments from across the region. And we're really a peer learning network, and so there's a lot of expertise amongst the peers that are in this room. So I think in addition to what Steve was saying about taking home some expertise, what he's really saying is there's a lot of expertise here already in each of your heads in your communities. And so my call to you would be to take some knowledge home, share some knowledge, get somebody's phone number, and have it in your back pocket so that you can call them when you need support when you get home. So the intention behind this is to build those connections as everything we do at SSDN, build some expertise, and keep you all going. We know the work that you all do is really hard, and we know that we can't do it alone, so it takes a village. Lori, I just want to say thank you all for coming, and we'll talk about logistics.
Yay, so I get to talk about logistics, so I've got notes so I don't forget anything. Welcome everybody. If you don't know me, my name is Dory Larson. I'm the Senior Electric Transportation Program Manager at the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. So some housekeeping things. We would love for everybody to be asking lots of questions. We want you to be listening to what your peers are saying. We really want you to be present and try to stay in the moment with us for the short time that we've got together. We are going to be using Mentimeter, so all you need is your smartphone and the camera out so that we can click on the QR code. And the intent is to capture data in real time and be able to use that data to help steer, see what I did there? The conversation. So really are wanting this to be like data-driven conversations and having you all's input guide where we go with the topics. What else? On the tables, the QR code is the agenda. So if you would like to have a roadmap for today and tomorrow, the agenda is what the QR code will get you to the agenda. And it also has the biographies of the panelists, and it also has what we are going to intend to do is add all of the participants' municipalities to the website. So we're assuming that everybody's cool with us putting your municipality on the website. If not, then Amy Raw is right outside, and just mention that to her. We are also, there she is, Amy's right there. So we're also going to be using photography, and we're going to be recording with video the sessions, and the intent is to put those on the website so that you'll have them to be able to go back to, and then also for folks that weren't able to come today to have that as a resource. Let's see. Okay, so the slide here, our first slide, is the intent is to kind of invoke an image of where we're at. So it's a roadway. It's got, if you pulled out and you looked at bigger picture, there would be lots of on-ramps going onto the road. And we're fully recognizing that not everybody in the room is on the highway coming in at the same place. So it's meant to, you know, be real with the fact that some of us are further along and others are just kind of getting started. And then that's great, because that's where we're all going to be learning. And we also wanted to help kind of level set, so we did send some resources ahead that are explaining some of the funding opportunities, so that we're all kind of level set on knowledge of what the funding opportunities are. And it is kind of a, you know, bi-truncated path. You could, you know, some cities are looking at the grants, but those are time consuming and resource consuming, and they're, you know, another option is to be looking at the tax credits, which are much lower hanging fruit. Some cities are doing both strategies. So we're going to be talking about all of the above the next couple days. And I also wanted to mention that this is going to be an ongoing process. So don't think of today as like the destination, it's a mile marker. So we're going to have another collaborative group get together in the end of November for a virtual session, and then again in the next quarter of 24. So, you know, and those conversations are going to be built on what we're learning today, and we'll prepare resources that will help, you know, what y'all need based on what we're learning together today and tomorrow. All right, so our objective is for everyone to feel heard today and tomorrow, and another objective of ours is to make sure that y'all are better equipped to receive funding. And then the goals that we have stated are to strengthen peer-to-peer networks, to have a better understanding of how we can integrate Justice 40 into all of the planning that we're doing, to enhance local, state, and federal collaboration, and to support the Southeast municipalities in pulling in a proportionate share of the federal funding that's available. So just kind of keep those goals in the back of your head, and just really appreciative that y'all are making this a priority in here today. So I will hand it over to Stan, who's going to guide us in our first activity.
Let's give a round of applause for Steve and Meg and Dory. I had to get us warmed up for applauding. All right, so I'm Stan Cross. I'm the Transportation Policy Director at Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. Thank you all for being here today. And we're going to kick off our first panel. Before I call up Dr. Shelley Francis from EV Noir and Julie Peacock from the Joint Office and Stacy Washington from South Carolina Energy Office, we're going to first do our initial Mentimeter. Right, so raise your hand if you've done a Mentimeter before. All right, so for those who haven't, it's a very simple process once you get into it, and it's a real-time survey. So that QR code, if you need to get up to get closer to it, feel free. It will take you to the Mentimeter website. So when you get into menti.com, either by going to the website and entering that code in the box on top, or by scanning that QR code, you're going to see your first survey question. All right. So we're going to start to see, responses to the survey. And the first question, right, is on a scale of 1 to 5. How do you feel your city does engaging your community in transportation and mobility issues? Right. So this is giving a sense of sort of where we're all at. That's great. So that's sort of where we're at collectively, right? Somewhere not feeling so great in our engagement. Now we have the second question that'll come up in Mentimeter. Before you respond to, you don't do the QR code again, right, Dory?
No, it
should come up next for you. Do you have another question coming up? So go ahead and respond to that.
And we also have 2 copies of the Mentimeter questions on the table. So actually we have multiple copies of it. So you can, if it's easier to read on paper and then put it in your phone.
So now we're looking at what you're feeling are your 3 biggest challenges in effectively engaging community around electric transportation. And we'll be sharing out this data as well. But what we're seeing, in terms of that challenges of effectively engaging your community, we're seeing kind of a mix of issues, everything from, the perceptions of EVs, right, by the communities that you're trying to engage, which is kind of an awareness, a behavioral and educational issue, all the way out to, a lack of charging infrastructure, and we know that, that's a real issue that we're facing when we're looking at equitable access to the benefits of electric transportation. So, how's everyone feeling about Menti? You feeling a little warmed up now? All right. So the intention, as Dory said, is to then be able to use this to inform. So now, as we call up our panelists, if Julie and Shelley and Stacy can come on up, we'll kind of have this conversation now about engaging community in the context of sort of where we're all at as a group. The intention of this first panel, we'll let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves here in a second. But the intention is to recognize that this challenge of community engagement is something that we're all facing, right? I don't think anybody has got that one figured out, right? I mean, it is a continually evolving process of engaging, learning, reflecting, engaging, learning, reflecting. And so we wanted to hit this topic right at the top of our gathering here today, and kind of both talk about it, recognize it, but also kind of hold it up as something that, as we're talking about everything else for the rest of our time together, this need for community engagement is going to be overarching over all of it.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Good. It's so wonderful to see you all. So, Dr. Shelley Francis, I'm one of the co-founders and managing partners of EV Noir. And so EV Noir is a consultancy. We focus on electric, connected, shared, and autonomous mobility solutions. And what that simply means is that I lead a team of engineers, data scientists, infrastructure consultants, policy experts, as well as multimodal electrification or mobility experts. And we're working collectively with the private and the public sector to help craft and implement their decarbonization strategies. So separate from that, we also have a nonprofit arm that is the nation's largest network of diverse EV drivers and enthusiasts. So we have thousands of members, similar to the Electric Vehicle Association model, but we have thousands of members who skew African American and Hispanic all across the United States as well as abroad. And so that organization's mission is to both increase awareness of multimodal electrification, but also to amplify and accelerate adoption in a way that is just and inclusive. And for us in our organization, we don't just focus on multi-ethnic racial communities, but we also focus on making sure that rural communities have access, or those who have specific ADA or mobility needs, as well as retirees and LGBTQ+ communities and more. So for us, it's really about accelerating and amplifying the just transition, but we know that a lot of the barriers stem from lack of education and misinformation, as we can see from some of the things that you've identified. So excited to have this conversation with you all today.
And hello everyone, my name is Stacy Washington. I'm the Deputy Director of the South Carolina Energy Office. I've been with the office for 7 years, and during that time I've really gotten interested in working in the communities and helping them understand energy and the issues, and what's the rate and how does that work, and now we're talking about solar and how does that work, and then energy efficiency, and now we're talking about electric vehicles and what is that, and do I even want one, and where do I charge it, and all of those different questions, and why do I care? So in that 7 years, we have done a lot of outreach and engagement activities and going to a lot of events and communities. We've done a lot of energy planning and tried to bring those communities to the table during that planning so that their voice can be heard, and that we can make sure that any issues or questions they have are incorporated, or any ideas that they have are incorporated into the plans that we have put together for the state. We're all learning and still trying to figure it out. All of this funding has community benefit plans that now have to be incorporated in it. And when is that? And how do I do that? So we're trying to figure that out as well. So we're in the fight and in the journey with you. So glad to be here and help with the discussion.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Julie Peacock. I'm with the Joint Office of Energy and Transportation, where I have been for a whopping 8 weeks. So, and really, I'll be talking to you today a little bit more from my past experience as opposed to my time at Jowett. I'm on a detail, which means the Joint Office borrowed me from one of the national labs where I work on electric vehicles more broadly. My background has really been with state government and engaging communities on complicated energy issues like deregulating our energy system, electric vehicles, and I also worked as a coordinator of Clean Cities Coalition in the Pacific Northwest. So I'm glad to be here and subbing in, so nice to meet you all.
All right, so just to kick things off, I think we all recognize that there's this need to be engaging communities authentically as we look to draw down federal funding. But there's some tension between the time grant and the timeline that's available. Any thoughts on that? You want to start with you, Shelley?
Sure. So hello everybody. So that is a really powerful question because that comes along frequently, and I know a lot of partners really grapple with this issue in terms of the timing and going to the community, and it's like, oh, our timeline is like 90 days, and the community is like, what are you talking about? It's going to take at least 6 months to get this person and Mrs. Jones and Mr. So-and-so at the table. So one of the things that you can actually do is start being very strategic and strategic, but also intentional and authentic by creating, establishing partnership with community partners or different stakeholders from across the community and across sectors, without there being a need to have a grant opportunity present or a RFP present. So the idea is start community conversations, listening sessions, and interdepartmental collaboration is really important so that you're not going back to the community about multiple different topics. So try to have like a cohesive listening session process. But also you should have a process for establishing maybe a community advisory board So you have an open call to different community members or community stakeholders and partners to really have an ongoing, sounding board essentially for any of the issues, challenges, opportunities, whether they be grant opportunities, as they come and these opportunities present themselves, you have a board that you can go to get immediate feedback. Another strategy also that we utilize when we first engage with partners and clients is understanding the scope, the historical context of the communities, understanding the social determinants of health and kind of demographic characteristics. And so we do that by facilitating a landscape assessment. So that's essentially just really getting an understanding of current data, whether it's socio-demographics, mobility needs, access, looking at things like, residential, like home ownership, where is current charging infrastructure, where are the transportation and pollution corridors. So understanding that landscape also helps inform, how you prioritize engagement strategies, as well as how you prioritize your actual grant writing or your grant application strategy.
And that's great, Shelley. I'll just add that we had a similar conversation in our national organization for energy offices and the National Association of State Energy Officials. How do you get started? Where do I go if I have not done any type of engagement? And the one tip that I thought was really interesting was that attach one to somebody else's meeting. Don't go and have your own meeting and then expect people to come. Try to build that relationship and then attach it on somebody else's meeting and not with your agenda, but just saying, hello, my name is, and just establishing a rapport, saying, this is who I am. So when I do ask you, if I have something, that you do remember who I am and that you're familiar with me. And that another instance that something that happened in our office is that we had one of those grant opportunities. It was really quick, and we're like, get everybody around, let's just go ahead and try to put something out real quick. We didn't get it, but that did give us a basis for a relationship and an idea so that we could, the next time an opportunity came around, we could build on that idea or use the relationships to be built to for the next opportunity that comes up.
I like everything that both of you said. What I've found effective in my life professionally generally is figuring out where people are. Energy is a very complicated topic. Like that can be very intimidating for your community members, right? Like they want to understand how their perspectives are going to be included in the work that you're doing, but sometimes they need an opportunity to learn a little bit more about electric vehicles or transmission, whatever your topic is. So creating educational opportunities within the community where you can talk very simply about the goals of the work that you're doing, or how the electric system works, how EV charging works, and not have it be an expectation that they need to provide information at the end. But I think community forums where you're just talking, like what you said about, go to someone else's meeting and do a 10-minute presentation on EVs. People don't understand what the NEVI program is. That you say NEVI to someone on the street, they're like, what is that? Is that a Star Wars character? I don't know. So just even like finding community organizations where you have a lot of attendance and just thinking about what are the things that if I was in this person's shoes, I'd want to know.
So in hearing you all speak, I mean, I think in this moment where thankfully there's a recognition with this federal funding that we need to be engaging all of our communities, and that the benefits need to be being delivered to all of our communities if we receive funding. Thinking about Justice 40 and thinking about that need to be more intentional, not only on the engagement side, but ultimately on the design and delivery side. Do you have examples you can speak to where you've seen folks break sort of out of those silos so that the engagement that's happening is reflective of that Justice 40 intent, and really bringing traditionally underserved and under-resourced communities to the table? Have you seen good examples of that being done where those groups are being brought forward? Whoever wants to start.
I was just going to bring up, it's not electric vehicle specific, but we have a solar workforce initiative that has started in our office. And we went to just a solar council meeting in South Carolina, and they said, oh, we need more people to work. And I thought, well, that's great, how can we help? So we got together with the group, and these are businesses who install solar. And we got with the group, and I said, well, you want to do training? Well, I know this community is doing training, and this university is doing training, and you want people, so let's figure out how we can bring all these people together. Is there some cohesive type of training we need in South Carolina? You know, what's happening? So, you know, what are all the different things that are happening in South Carolina? Can we standardize it? Does it need to be standardized? What is needed? What qualifications do you need? And so we brought everybody to the table, and now we have a couple of different trainings that have come out of that. One on the university level that will bring people from the community that can attend to get the basic things they need for NABCEP certification for solar. And then another one within a community. So one of those businesses that came to the table started a new business, and now they're working with communities and doing some training in the community, or separate training, designed a training for the community to be on the installer level. Not necessarily being having that certification for NABCEP, but being the person that can work on the roof, that can work all the way up to the panel. And so they're doing that on that level. So the way they explained it to me is that the university is doing the training for people that work in the office, and we're doing the training in the community for people to be those installers. And they said electric vehicles, chargers for homes, as well as solar, as well as battery storage. So through that opportunity of just saying, hey, we need help, we were able to bring all the people together. We knew all these things were happening in the state. And then, you know, we're hoping that this will spawn some great workforce opportunities and jobs.
Okay, so thank you, Stacy. So one of example that, and some of the examples I'll speak to are things that we worked on, or that I know, you know, was out in the literature, or you know, that have been identified and held up as best practice models. So a project that we worked on collectively, actually in Central Florida, I don't know if I can say the city or not, but we had the opportunity to work with a metropolitan area community on their electrification strategy. So they were planning out their 2030 electrification plan. And so shortly before the city started working on their plan, the state had actually completed their state, you know, electrification plan. And so that kind of fed into the city's work. And so the city, interestingly enough, was, you know, put forth, I guess their strategy was to convene stakeholders from across like diverse sectors. So yes, you had your utility and co-op partners, you had transit, you had energy offices, Department of Transportation, rideshare, community-based organizations, public health, elected officials, academics, and more. And so that convening group helped craft that electrification strategies, helped inform it. But one of the things that they also did before they convened this group was they engaged with our organization, and we helped facilitate some of that stakeholder engagement with stakeholders that may not often be represented at the table, in the sense of it was, you know, some folks who were maybe English wasn't their first language, or they were from Native and tribal communities, or African American. And so we facilitated a number of, you know, listening sessions, as well as focus groups, to really understand what their mobility and transportation needs and concerns were, so that we could put forth that information to help inform the electrification strategy. And then later, after the electrification strategy was in place, we also facilitated some basically online surveys. So we've got a representative sample of that community to understand their knowledge, attitudes, and beliefs around electrification, mobility needs and gaps, and just how we would best seek to engage them, and how they wanted to, you know, hear about these different topics. So those are some of the different layers that we utilize to really do some community engagement, but do it in a creative way. And then the other idea or effort is that there is continuous touch points with the stakeholders, so that they know what's going on with the plan, they know what the community is doing around charging infrastructure, and seeking feedback from community members about anything and all things that are electrification focused. So that's one of the examples that I wanted to put forth for you.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good example, and I think, Julie, feel free to add to it, but I just wanted to mention before that I'm just curious in the group, like how many of you feel that, you have a good sense as to all of the assets that you have in your community that you can leverage to do this kind of engagement? Right, we heard Stacy talking about that, higher ed engagement, well, the private sector and kind of bringing all those partners together, or the kind of collaboration that you were just talking about happening in Florida. I'm just curious if you could, with a show of hands, like how many of you feel like you have a good sense in your community of all the assets you have at your disposal to do effective engagement?
I think that's one of the main challenges, is that we typically don't have capacity to do staff engagement until there is a project, and like many of you said, that's too late.
Right. Is that something that rings true for most of you? Nodding heads. That's a great point. So yeah, let's hold that and sort of unpack that more when we get to talking around the table. Julie, did you want to share?
Sure. I already said education in my previous answer, but I really do think anything that you can do to level power balance between people who are engaging as professionals who are paid to be there in the room talking about it, and the members of your community who are spending their time coming to talk to you about what their wants and needs are for their everyday life. I think doing some really systematic thinking about how you make sure their voices are just as strong when you're making decisions for your community. When I was at the Oregon Public Utility Commission, that's one of my previous roles as the Director of Policy, I ran a process that looked at how do you modernize electricity regulation. And community groups were very, very interested in engaging in that conversation. They wanted to say and set the policy for what do we want electric utilities to be doing over the next 30 years? What are the goals that they should really be meeting beyond, providing end-use electricity to me? But how do you engage in a process where you have a utility who can bring 20 lawyers in the room and have that conversation? So one thing we did was really think about how in the very beginning of the process to resource those community groups, whether it was through stipends, an opportunity for them to provide education directly to those professional actors that are in the room about what their needs and desires are. It really created a sort of a level-setting trust between people. It wasn't just them being told what they should care about, but they were able to tell people who are the professionals what they should care about when thinking about how the utility system should look in the future.
What Julie said is really, really important in turn. I see this gentleman in the center here has a question too for you, Stan, so I'll turn the mic back over to you momentarily. But what she said is really, really important. I just want to make sure that people capture that piece is when you're talking about going to community members or community stakeholders, and they are your experts, right? So as experts, we're experts in our respective fields. So when people come to us, at times we may like, hey, we're gonna share this nugget of information with you, but normally you want to be compensated for your knowledge and your expertise. And it's the same thing when working with communities and community stakeholders and partners. Like, we need to compensate them for their time, their expertise. They're taking time out of their day or their evening or their weekend to provide us with information that's going to help us, complete our job duties, our deliverables. And so it's really critically important to resource them. And it's okay if you don't always have financial, monetary cash to give them, to ask them, well, what's the best way for us to compensate you for your time? We value your expertise and your willingness to share your thoughts with us. But at the same time, you also have to acknowledge them and, have that conversation with them around resourcing them. So I think it's very important to discuss that.
Absolutely, thank you. Do we have, go ahead.
I'm kind of curious about how you would go about trying to get engagement and participation in a community around, something that's not related to a specific objective or project, something that has a point if you will, when it's extremely difficult to get people to show up to meetings when there is something specific that you're trying to, advance down the road. And, how do you get people interested in showing up in just, a meeting or an activity where it's just information about EVs or charging systems or what have you?
I would say, go to them, go to something that's already happening, go to an event and have a booth, or go to a meeting, or if you know somebody who's, like the church is having a meeting, can I come, can I hand out a flyer, make a relationship. There's probably somebody in your local government that is in a community, that's in an organization, that's in something that can be used to tag on to one, establish a relationship, and then also if the opportunity presents itself to do some further engagement. I don't know if it's not working for you to set up your own meeting, have people come, go to them. Something we're thinking of on the energy office is, we've had trouble with people. We have a tool out there we think is cool, and nobody knows about it, but we're like, okay, we've gone all these events, but no, the whole state is not going to be at every event, every STEM event. So we're like, okay, we got to go to people where they are, and where are they? On their phones. So we're trying to do some digital marketing for the state, and you can do targeted digital marketing if you have a certain community you're trying to target. You can use some data and then target the message that you have. Or if you're having an event, I know this is not energy related at all, but somebody that now works in our office did a rain barrel event, and I saw the advertisement when I was playing a game, and I was like, how do you do that? I want to do that. I want people to know about solar.sc.gov. I want people to know about energysaver.sc.gov, and it was digital marketing, and you can target different demographics or people that way too. So I would say just go to them if at all possible in that kind of way.
Something in the community that's happening that people go to. So whether it's like the Parent-Teacher Association, or maybe it's some cultural festival, or the peanut festival, or whatever it is, just identify what that activity or the event in a calendar year is that people go to and there's a lot of foot traffic, and then make a partnership with whoever organizes that activity or that festival or that event or that recurring meeting, and get an audience with those folks, with the stakeholders in that way. So that way you don't have to create a whole new meeting, and then you're creating a meeting and people are like, I don't know who this person, Shelley Francis, is. I'm not going to this meeting. I'm going to, spend my evening doing whatever it is, the things that I enjoy, or spend my weekend doing the things that I enjoy. The other thing that I was going to suggest, what was it I was going to say? Maybe it'll come back to me. But essentially, like, not reinventing the wheel, really tapping onto existing, I know what it is, tapping onto existing events, and identifying in your communities who are like the kind of movers or shakers, who are the people that are the individuals who people listen to, like command an audience, and develop a relationship or gain entree, get introduced to that person and build a relationship with them, and let them know, authentically what you're trying to do, and see if they will help you navigate some of those community meetings or some of those relationships and partnerships.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and appreciate the responses, because I think part of the opportunity that this level of engagement would bring is to understand what the sort of needs and priorities of your community are. Because in trying to draw down these federal funds, the proposals that are going to stand out to the federal agencies or the state agencies that are administering the funds are the ones that are going to reflect that what those needs and priorities are, and that if the funds are made available, the project you proposed is really going to meet those needs and priorities, right? It's that kind of cohesive, application that's going to stand out, and it's obvious when you're reviewing proposals, which ones have really engaged and which ones have just kind of on the surface, kind of picked at what likely, will work in the community. So I think there's some real benefits to this deep and authentic engagement. It's a challenge to get it to happen, but there's a big payout at the end in terms of both being able to get the resources, but also being able to see projects happen in your community that have deep buy-in, and are going to have that kind of long-term benefit, but also that long-term stickiness to the project. Yeah.
What are some best practices around kind of doing what you're saying and sort of using your community organizations to help get the community feedback and help you write a robust, grant application, because I totally was hearing you about these organizations, they have their own goals and you need to pay them for their time. What are some best practices around having that buy-in from those organizations to help in the effort? Do you need to literally send out an RFP for community organizations? How does that, I just haven't done that before, so.
I would say number one is to be extremely clear with them what you're asking of them, what the time commitment is, what sort of response you need. I think telling them how that information is going to be used. No one likes to go to a meeting and get feedback and then it goes into a black hole, right? Developing that feedback loop early. And I think the third thing that I think is really important is being able to articulate to them why this matters. Why your input matters. We all work in public service, right? We serve the public. That is what we want at the end of the day, is that the decisions that we're trying to make in our everyday jobs really have a positive impact on individuals' lives. So how can we translate some of the mundane aspects of what we do day to day to people to help them understand your feedback, I'm going to hear it, you're going to know what I did with it, and then in the future, if you need someone to reach out to, you have me to reach out to.
All right. Now we turn back to mentees. All right, so the first question, we got two for you. One is talking about your ability to deliver, how you feel your community is prepared to deliver on Justice 40 requirements. So the next question, this is going to be your first sort of open-ended question in Mentimeter. And so what we want to know is sort of what additional questions do you have that did not get addressed? So after kind of hearing the presentation and hearing some of the back and forth we have, if there's anything else on your mind right now, any other question you have that didn't get addressed that you would like to be addressed, go ahead and log it, right? And then we'll be looking to resurface those questions as we move through the next day and a half. All right, this is your 30-second warning. Brevity. The spice of life. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, thank you all. We'll resurface that. Appreciate your attention during that first panel. Awesome. Thank you for the initial engagement. I feel like we're getting